So I recently took the TOEFL 2 months ago and I scored a 119 out of 120. In the past as well, I had taken the TOEFL and I had still scored 119 out of 120. So both my test scores have been the same. Listen, I got 30 in all these sections except for one section, and I'm going to tell you exactly what kind of a mistake I made. If I had access to this video before my test, I would have never made that mistake. So I'm going to make sure that you don't. Apart from that, I'm giving you 7 tips and tricks in this video, and those are going to be pretty much everything you need for the TOEFL reading section. Take it from me in writing. I've taken it twice and I know what I'm talking about. I will also be doing some live solving videos where you can actually see me solve questions of the TOEFL reading and many other sections live, so you can actually build up strategy with me. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you're interested. My number one tip for you is to take the TOEFL home edition. You see, here's the problem with the TOEFL. This is how the test is structured. There's a microphone test, a reading section, a listening section, a speaking section, or a writing section. You see, both the times I took my TOEFL, I took it at the test center. And that was my biggest mistake. So the first time I went, I started the test as soon as I was in the room. There were still people who were basically conducting their microphone tests, but my reading section had already begun. And the thing is, when people are doing their microphone test, they say all kinds of random stuff about their name, where they're from, and what they do, which you basically don't care about. But the thing is, it will avoid you from focusing on the reading. And that's why when I was reading, I literally had my fingers in my ears and I was literally trying to focus so much on the laptop. But it was just not happening. And that's, I believe, one of the reasons why I scored one less point in that test. So you know what? I thought, hey, that's fine. Next time I take my TOEFL, I will start late. And when I took it this time, I did the same. I said, hey, I'm going to the test center, no problem. But this time I'm going to start late. I had the key. I had the strategy. I should be good. But this time the problem was that while I was doing my listening section, other people had already started their speaking section. Well, the problem with this is, again, during the listening section, it's very difficult to focus on your earphones when other people are trying to speak very loudly into their laptops, into their microphones. And sometimes I just lost focus and I started focusing on what my neighbor was speaking. And it just got extremely difficult for me to understand the listening passage. And sometimes because of that, what happens is that you fail to take the right notes and you don't have the right answers. So my solution to this problem is to stop going to the test center at all. Take the TOEFL at home. I was not the biggest advocate of the TOEFL at home edition, but in the last couple of years, it's been improvised very well. The prop to you is good. There's no issues people are facing as of today like they were back in the time of COVID when it launched. And universities are accepting the TOEFL scores from the home edition. So I think you are golden when you do that. My number 2 tip for you is to carry earplugs. Remember when I was telling you that I had my fingers in my ears, all trying to focus on the passage? Well, luckily, someone saw it, one of the invigilators, and they came around and they gave me earplugs looking a little bit like this. Now, these are usually easily available on Amazon near you. So you can go ahead and buy those and you can take them to the test so that you have them from the very beginning rather than someone giving it to you in the middle of the test when you've already lost some points. Number 3 is to avoid rereading. A lot of us think that when we're not able to focus on a passage, because sometimes, let's face it, TOEFL passages can be boring, right? We think if we read again the whole paragraph, we're going to get some extra knowledge out of it. Whereas that's hardly the case. In many cases, you're just wasting your time when you're rereading. So my advice would be to stop, understand that the timer is ticking. You can come back to this question later on and move on to the next one if you don't understand this part of the passage. Sometimes things magically start making sense just because you've read more of the passage, and then you can come back to this particular paragraph and understand it better. So it's not like the GRE where you can actually mark the questions. If you don't understand some part of the passage, you need to mark a question, just write down the question number, and then you can come back later on to it. Number 4 tip is to read and answer sequentially. The biggest mistake on the TOEFL you can make is to read the entire passage first and then go to the questions. That is not the way the TOEFL works. The TOEFL will always have the first question from usually the first paragraph, second question from the second paragraph, so on and so forth. I mean, there may be a bit of a discrepancy somewhere, but in most cases, the questions and answers are always in the sequential order of the passage. So please make sure that you don't just end up reading the passage and then you keep on going back to the passage later on. That is not something that you will have the time for on the TOEFL. Point number 5 is to not get stuck. Very important. A lot of people sometimes get stuck onto certain questions without actually realizing that most other questions on the test are the same amount of points. And later on, if you're losing points on the last 4 or 5 questions just because you could not even see them simply because you were stuck on a question, well, you've wasted your time and your score. That can actually ruin your whole test. So make sure that you go ahead, keep on basically writing down the question numbers that you don't understand right now, and you can revisit those questions later on. It's completely fine, but don't get stuck. Number 6 is to practice with some background noise. Sometimes when you're practicing at home, right, just keep a random movie at some low volume on, because who's to say on your actual test, let's say sometimes there's some disturbances, sometimes you're at the test center and people are speaking when you're trying to read. So you want to make sure that you account for that and you get used to it. In some of my previous videos, I've actually given this tip and people said this was one of the best tips that I could have given them in the whole video. So make sure that you try this out. My 7th tip for you is to create your own dictionary. Whenever you're studying, and if you don't know how to study, I already have a TOEFL prep plan for you for 15 days and for 1 month as well. So you can pick up whichever one you like and you'll get the study material and day by day plan. You can already do that. But the important part is that you start making your own dictionary. Whenever you're studying, you're using the exact TOEFL material. That means that some questions might actually contain those exact words you're not understanding today. And if you just skip them, the chances are that you will have to skip those questions on the test day as well. So make sure that whenever you come across a word, whether it's a part of the question or the options and you don't understand it, make sure that later on during your review, you write down the word, you write down the meaning, and you write down a sentence along with it so that you understand the usage of that word as well. That also means that you'll be able to use it later on in your writing sections. Those were 7 tips, but hold on, don't leave just yet. I have a bonus for you. And that is the last question. That is the summarize the essay question. Usually, this question is worth 2 points instead of 1, unlike most other questions on the TOEFL. This basically tests your overall understanding of the passage, and you'll have 5, 6 options. You have to choose the best 3. So what you want to do over here is you want to read each and every sentence and you want to understand, what if I just remove this whole thing from the passage? What if I remove point A from the passage? What if this information was never there? Would that passage be still intact, more or less? If the answer is yes, then you pretty much know that that thing is not important. But if something major goes out of the passage, you would know, hey, this thing would basically put the passage out of proportion. Everything would go wrong over here. In that case, you want to pick those as the summary options. Trust me, it sounds like something very easy, but just by asking yourself this question, that is it very important to the passage or can I just remove it? You might be able to actually answer this question every time. And personally, in both my tests, I've been able to do it each and every time, because I lost 1 point each. So I can tell you that I did not lose out points on this particular question. So these were my 7 tips and tricks, plus a bonus, of course, for the TOEFL reading section. Make sure that you sign up on YMGrad because I'm giving you free study material for your TOEFL journey, and so that you can actually go ahead and use the score to get into some of the topmost universities worldwide. If you like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and follow me on Instagram, where I'll keep on giving you more such deals. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye and take care.